G'day again. This is a follow-up to a video that we've done recently on the owning a Ram in Australia. This is a Ram 3500. This is my truck, and one of the things that I was concerned about in buying this truck is most of the servicing carried out on the farm I do myself on pretty much any vehicle. It can be the ATVs, the tractors, the farm vehicles, mowers, mulchers, whatever. Do it in-house, and I wanted to do the servicing for this myself as well. Now obviously oils and filters are fairly straightforward, that's pretty easy, but my two principal concerns were, am I going to be able to get parts for this? And secondly, am I going to be able to easily get access to the expertise that I need if something, curly comes up? Because in servicing vehicles previously, I've owned common vehicles, stuff like the old TF Rodeos when I was running them on the farm. If you had something go wrong with it, you were never really far away from an answer. Remember, I busted the front main seal on it. I saw a buddy of mine who had said, "Oh, I've done a front main seal. What do you do to get it out?" He said, "Oh, you just do this, 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 and this." Oh, right, okay, that's easy then. Pop it straight out, no problem. You can launch into it yourself sometimes and just have a go and hope that it's similar, but often there's, with vehicles, there's little idiosyncrasies of particular cars that can make servicing one car different from servicing another car. And sometimes having that intelligence really does make it easy. And sometimes that's as simple as pulling up a workshop manual and just reading through it. But sometimes, even in workshop manuals, like I have a workshop manual for this, for example, and it covers the model years of this generation truck, but not everything in the book details the diesel specification, which is very frustrating. So, and I've seen that with other vehicles too, where you pick up an ownership manual, a workshop manual, and the one thing that you need to find out is not described. It only gives you the petrol example and you've got the diesel, or it gives you the diesel example and you've got the petrol. And for whatever reason, that specific bit of information is missing, and it would have made your job a lot easier. So I didn't know how that was going to go, especially given how few of these there are on the road. So we'll detail a little bit of that. In terms of buying parts, what's it been like buying parts? Buying parts has been very, very easy. So I wanted to get, when I bought this, the first thing I wanted to do was do all the filters. And I bought them all in Australia domestically. They came from a place called Filter Discounters. You can visit them online. Bought a full set of filters on them. I did a bit of research beforehand in terms of what filters. I generally run Fleet Guard filters, and this is a Cummins in this, so Cummins own Fleet Guard, so that would probably be a logical thing to do, is just to go to Cummins and get some filters. I did a bit of reading around and found that a lot of owners lament the fact that Cummins recommend a micron filter for this particular engine that they actually don't meet. The micron in their fuel filter for this particular truck doesn't meet the specifications Cummins set for themselves on a 5.9, and neither does any commercial manufacturer. But Baldwin filters do make a better spec micron filter than what Fleet Guard do. So I went, okay, well that would be good, and a lot of people in North America are running Baldwin filters for that reason. They're saying, I run Baldwin fuel filters because they're a better grade micron than what Fleet Guard offers. So I thought, I wonder if you can get Baldwin filters in Australia. You can. Filter Discounters had everything for this truck in stock. It wasn't a problem. And across the brands that I wanted, Baldwin for the fuel filter, and then Fleet Guard for the others. You can also go to Cummins Direct, and speaking to other Ram owners of a similar vintage, they say many Cummins dealers, especially in metro areas, have the filters in stock. If you ring them up and confirm, but they have the filters in stock. Oil, easy enough to get, just find something with a suitable grade. The Valvoline full synthetic 15 weight 40 that Cummins dealers sell is what I've been running in this. Great to have a full synthetic option, and it is what's recommended by Cummins. And that particular oil meets the grade of all the vehicles and equipment that I'm running. My skid steer, tractors, the Land Cruiser, the Hilux, this truck, All the diesel engines I have that particular grade oil will service, so I migrated, used up the old oil I had, and I've migrated to buying 200, 44-gallon drums of the stuff from Cummins directly, and I've found them very competitive on price in terms of a price per litre of oil. I've actually found it cheaper or equivalent pricing than pretty much any other of their competitors. So that's a good move, and it's a higher spec oil than what I was using. So, and it covers all the vehicles that I service. So that's really good. So oil's not a problem. Filters aren't a problem. Recently, I wanted some other things. I wanted some steering components. I wanted some shock absorbers, and I went on recommendation of some Ram owners to try out rockauto.com, and I put an order in with them, and I've been astonished at their service. So I'll do a separate video on rockauto.com if you're interested in buying from them. I've bought from other US suppliers. I've bought parts from some other diesel online resellers, and you can soon find an option for whatever part you want for one of these trucks. But Rock Auto specifically, I've found them extraordinarily competitive on price. Steering, suspension components. So for example, I recently had to replace the shock absorbers in my 100 series Land Cruiser, and I quoted them up in Australia, and they were going to be, circa $700 about to get a quality set of shock absorbers to change that out. And I wanted to change the shock absorbers out on this because they're still on the original shocks, and wanted to change them out, and quoted them up from Rock Auto, and it was cheaper to get them from Rock Auto and shipped to Australia, delivered to my door, than it was to go to a local manufacturer for a fairly common vehicle in my 100 series Land Cruiser and buy shock absorbers for that, and ditto steering components. Even with the freight, Rock Auto has been very, very competitive. Now at the moment we have a fairly uncertain global economic environment, and there's a bit of uncertainty in the Aussie dollar, so it will depend on how strong the Aussie dollar remains as to the competitiveness of pricing on US websites into the future. But at the moment, at least, where the Aussie dollar is trading currently, I've still found them very competitive. And I've been astonished that the consumables for this truck, and this is absolutely what I have found to be the truth, that the consumables for this truck have really been no more expensive than the consumables for any other vehicle that I own at the moment, which has been great. The exception is the volume of oil, the volume of coolant, the volume of trans fluid that you have to put into this. You've got to put circa 11 litres of oil in this thing. If you've got a Toyota Hilux or a Ranger, you're going to put half that amount in there. But you've got to put 11, 12 litres of oil in this thing when you change the oil. So, but if you're paying circa $4 a litre for oil, for every oil change, if you have to put another 6 litres of oil in it, it's $24. It's not going to break the bank. And these have a very long service interval, really, really long service interval, basically over 20,000 kilometre service interval, close to 25,000 k's service interval. That's on, not extreme driving. At the moment, I'm choosing to service it every 6 months or 15, but it's a very, very long interval, very, very long interval. So there's some benefit there as opposed to traditional Aussie utes, which might be 10 or 15,000 kilometre service interval. To have 25 if you're not pushing it hard, and that's the caveat, because most people who buy one of these are probably going to be towing pretty heavily, so you're probably going to be doing it on an interim basis, probably maybe 15,000 k's, but still that's a pretty good interval for such for an engine that you're probably going to be working pretty hard. So consumables have been very easy to get. Filters, other components for it have been very good. The aftermarket selection for these trucks is absolutely phenomenal. I have made some modifications and changes to it, and I'll detail them in separate videos. It's now got a pyrometer. It's now got a transmission temperature gauge, and I tap them into various places in the truck. I'll detail them in a later video. But your options for fitting aftermarket accessories for these trucks is just incredible. You do want to be careful that there's nothing being lost in the conversion that would prohibit you from fitting it. With this particular truck, most suspension components and pretty much all of the steering components are all able to be purchased off the rack in the US with a few exceptions. So that's really, really positive. It depends on how they've done the conversion as to how many parts are going to be directly able to be fitted off the US catalogue into an Australian converted truck. So you do have to watch for that. But lots of options, filtration, power enhancement. I'm not pursuing power enhancement at this stage. This has got more power than I need. So I'm not pursuing that. But you've got lots and lots and lots of options. And because there's so many of these being sold, they are really, with volume comes economies of scale, which gives you a discount. So just briefly back on the suspension point, when I bought my 100 series cruiser replacement shocks, I priced up a whole different shocks, Iron Man, Old Man Emu, Top Dog, a whole different shock absorbers, and I also quoted Bilstein's, and Bilstein's seemed to have a very good following. A lot of the other brands had a good following too, but it just depends on how much you wanted to pay. I quoted Bilstein's for the 100 series through Rock Auto, and including shipping, they were cheaper than all the other brands. They were cheaper than Top Dog, cheaper than Iron Man, cheaper than Old Man Emu, shipping direct to my door, and considerably so, considerably more cost effective. So that's the way I went. That's with a 4900 series shock. With this truck, I chose to go a higher grade. I went to a 5100 series shock. And the 5100 series shocks for this are higher rated than the 100 series Land Cruiser 4900 series shocks. But delivered to my door, the 5100 series shocks were cheaper than the 4900 series shocks for the Land Cruiser. And the reason is volume. It's just economics. More shocks are sold for this car than my 100 series Cruiser in North America. There's not as many of them over there. So Bilstein make more for this car, and that brings the price down. So the huge volumes of parts that are sold for these trucks each year benefits you as an owner because you get cheaper parts. So I found it very, very easy to get parts, and with Rock Auto, the longest I've waited for parts after ordering has been 4 business days. I ordered I got a leather steering wheel retrimmed in Adelaide the other week, and I got that sent over here, and that took me 10 days before it arrived, 10 business days, which is abnormally high. Usually it's 5 to 7 is the longest I have to wait in this regional area in Australia, but it took 10 business days to arrive. And the longest I've waited for Rock Auto, including a shipment that only just came the other week, was 4 business days. It is just lightning fast. So that was one of the concerns I had, was if something went catastrophically wrong, how long I'm just going to have to live probably with the vehicle being out of action for a long time while I secure parts, or I'm going to have to pay an inordinate amount of money domestically to buy the parts from someone who's got them on the shelf. And knowing that Rock Auto can get them to me in 3 to 4 days, and there's a faster shipping option, really eliminates that risk for me. I know that I can get pretty much any part that I want into the country through that service. And there's other service providers that do that too. It's not just Rock Auto, but my experience has primarily been with them. And that really alleviates a lot of my concern. So the other bit of concern I had was, what's it going to be like to service it, and can I get access to expertise to help me out? Now, in terms of basic stuff, in changing your filters over, air filters, very easy. Fuel filters, very easy. Love having a big wide engine bay. There's lots of room around the engine for anybody who's dealt with, compact cars, or even to a large extent the four-wheel drives, four-cylinder four-wheel drive dual cabs that are sold in Australia. You often, if you don't wear mechanics gloves, and I don't, you've got to learn to love skin knuckles, because you're just always bashing your knuckles against something, trying to get something out of an engine bay. This, you've just got all this lovely room. It's lovely to work on. Lots of space to get things in and out. So changing filters is pretty easy. The oil filter is straight line. You back straight up, you undo it, take it out. fuel filters on the passenger side, just undo the cap. It's a cartridge filter, but the way it's designed, you can pull it out without making it too big of a mess. It's got nice drainage on the bottom of the canister, which is good. You can clean the bowl out very easily. The radiator's got a drain at the bottom, and it's got block drains, which I really like. That's really cool. So you can drain the block, you can drain the radiator really, really easy if you want to flush it out. That's a really well done Cummins for that. That's a really good thing to do. So the engine-wise, I find it very good to service. In terms of the car, man, like Dodge or Ram trucks now put some drain plugs on things. That is the most frustrating thing. So this has got a 48 RE transmission in it. No drain plug on the transmission pan. That's just a terrible idea. Considering you've got to adjust the bands reasonably frequently, you're recommended to change the fluid reasonably frequently and the filter, not massively. No drain plug, that's just a nightmare. All the videos I've seen online, seen people drop transmission fluid all over the floor of their shed. I've done it, exactly the same scenario, got transmission fluid everywhere. It's just a bloody mess. I've fitted an aftermarket pan with a drain plug in it. That's just a silly omission. That should have had a drain plug on it. And the front and rear diff, this has got a solid front axle, so solid diff front, solid diff rear, no drain plugs again. Like, what the hell's that about? My Land Cruiser, my Hilux, my last Ranger, my Triton all had drain plugs. Really easy to change the differential oil, undo the drain plug, undo the fill plug, let it drain out. When it's drained, put the drain plug back in, fill it back up again, you're done. With this thing, you got to undo it's got a diff cover, you got to unbolt it, take it off, drain the oil out. That's fine enough. So it's not messy, but you got to get a freaking filter. Unless you want to use gasket goo, and I don't really like gasket goo, you got to buy a filter, a gasket every time you change the differential. Thankfully, you don't have to do it very often, but that's just a silly move. Shouldn't have to do that. I'm fine with differential covers if you want to have a diff cover on your axle. That's fine. Makes some sense, in fact, to change some stuff over. But not having drain plugs is just foolish. You should have drain plugs, so that's pretty painful. So I would prefer it to have drain plugs. But so those three things, the transfer case is fine. It's got drain and fill plugs. That's good. But if I was going to knock anything in just general servicing so far, that's been a real pain, not being able to have a drain plug on the transmission and the front and rear differentials. That would make servicing a lot easier. And it's such a simple fix. Thankfully, I fixed the transmission problem now. It does have a drain plug now. So next time I go around to do that, that will be better. In terms of getting access to expertise, I bought a workshop manual with it. The owner's manual is really, really good. Kudos to you, Dodge, Ram trucks now, Dodge when this was built, for doing a really, really good owner's manual. There's some really good information in there. I love me an owner's manual that is written with the assumption that the person buying the vehicle perhaps wants to service it themselves, because it gives you a lot of information. It's not a full workshop manual, but it's a good way of the way there. I really appreciate that. So between that and the workshop manual, that's got most of the things that I want to do. However, one of the principal benefits I've found of owning this truck is pretty much anything you want to do has already been done by someone, and they've published a video on it on YouTube. So when I document the little modifications and stuff that I do on this truck, there's not really any point in revisiting any of that. I'll say, this is what I've done. It'll be either a good thing to do or a bad thing to do. But in terms of how to do it, you can go to this video and find it out. Pretty much anything that could go wrong with this, all the common faults, or even just I haven't had anything go wrong with it yet, and I pray that nothing does happen. I've been very blessed with a very good, well-running truck so far. But into the future, if something did go wrong, I've got very little doubt that I can't get online and find out exactly the answer that I want for how to do it, either in a YouTube video or in an online forum. Everything that I have thought of so far that I've wanted to have a look at, I have searched for. Before I've even got out the owner's manual, I've just started now just Googling it, and you usually get a YouTube video that's might be a bit wobbly, but it gives you a good understanding of what you need to do. Changing the water pump, for example, like there's lots of videos on that. Watched a couple of them, you go, okay, that's how this guy got it out. That's fine. And you might like one technique better than the other. but I have yet to find anything in terms of servicing or preemptive fixes that you might want to do. For example, I don't have a busted water pump, but I chose to replace the water pump anyway, just so that I know that it's right, and do the serpentine belt and everything at the same time. And there's instructions for that. Everything's documented. It's really, really good. With Aussie utes, Aussie vehicles, some of that information is available online, but it's nothing like the library of stuff that is available for this truck. It's just awesome. So I am less worried about that now, and in terms of can I get access to expertise. I'm watching a lot of comments from people speaking to other Ram owners who report on some excellent service from people like, and I haven't dealt with them, so I don't know what they're like, but people who are advocates of individual diesel workshops or resellers like SCD or Trucks and Toys or whatever, and saying they're getting great service from them. And that's awesome, because it means that people have those options to go to if they get stuck and they want to go back to someone who knows Ram trucks, or if you've got an F-250 knows F trucks. There's a good level of services being provided by experienced workshops in Australia who specialise in these things. But if you were away from them, if you were based remotely, I tend to think, because of the information that is online about how to repair things on these trucks, if you weren't comfortable doing it yourself, you could probably flick it to your local mechanic, as long as they were reasonably competent, or if you wanted to, especially who was a specific diesel mechanic, take the truck to them and say, look, this is apparently how you fix this. This is what's gone wrong. Can you repair it for me? And I'd be pretty surprised if they couldn't fix it. And with parts being no more than 4 days away, you're going to be able to get your truck back on the road pretty soon. If you get a good one, look after it. I would think that you're going to have some really tenured mileage in the thing before anything starts to go wrong, as long as you look after it as scheduled. And this thing's been well maintained. I don't expect anything to go wrong with it, but you do want to know that you can get access to expertise, and having the online catalogue of such vast information on how to fix things, and having some really experienced, specialised Ram mechanics in Australia has really alleviated that as a concern for me. So I think that I bought this with the desire to say, I'm going to buy this and I'm going to try and get 10 years out of it. And I think that I shouldn't have any difficulty with that at all. And it's good to know in the meantime, in terms of consumables and servicing it myself, I'm not going to be paying a premium for parts and consumables over any other vehicle I own. It's been quite a stone. That's been a real shock to me that that's been the reality of a North American truck ownership in Australia. Everyone I've spoken to over the years has said, if you're going to own one, you're going to pay a lot for parts, you're going to pay a lot for servicing, and not everyone's going to want to get their truck serviced by themselves, but buying parts and consumables for it really doesn't need to cost you much more than what it would for any other vehicle, or more at all. I found it very cost effective. So I hope that's been useful. That's a bit of my experience with it in servicing. I've had great experience with Rock Autos, sufficient to say that I would recommend them as an option for buying parts in Australia. If that's of use to you, go check them out at rockauto.com. There are other providers that I have used online as well, and you can seek them out for yourself. And I haven't had any other issues. If I have any online orders that don't go right, then I'm happy to report it. But so far, so good all with servicing. If you own a Ram, I hope that you are going all good as well. And if you're looking for one, I hope that was useful for you. And I thank you for watching.